Hi, I'm Taj Jackson. Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Taj Jackson, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm a little tired, but I'm always tired. So
It's an absolute honor to have you on my show today. Of course, your dad is the legendary Tito Jackson of the Jackson 5. What was it like growing up being a Jackson? And when did obviously you're in a musical family, but when did you realize the significance of the Jackson family name and what you mean to people around the world?
it's weird because I've seen pictures of me and video of me as a kid, meeting people like Cher and, all these big celebrities, and icons, and not even remembering meeting them. So it's kind of interesting, but I would say I think the Jacksons had a tour like in 79, 80, 1980-ish. And just seeing the screaming fans, there's a place called the Forum in Los Angeles. And I was old enough to actually like be on stage at times and watch them perform. And it just was amazing. I was like, whatever they're doing, I want to do that. Yeah, I want to be a part of that. But at the same time, he still was my dad, and that still is my uncles. And so I just thought, oh, that's what my dad does. Maybe every person's dad does that and whatever. I didn't realize until school-ish that, no, my dad was different. He had a different career.
How's your family doing at the moment? Are you still keeping in touch throughout lockdown? How's your grandmother Catherine doing?
Yeah, we do keep in. I mean, the thing is we have such a big family, as you probably know. And so everyone kind of keeps in contact with certain people. So like you only have to call the hubs of certain people. But my grandma's doing fine. She, for her age, I would say, I'm very happy to report that and say that, because I've always said she's like the sun to us. She's like the whole family revolves around her. We get our warmth and our strength from her. And so we're so happy that she's, here and healthy.
Absolutely, and I hope she's for a very long time to come.
I do too. That's the plan. Yeah.
Now, you're, of course, you're the oldest of three brothers. Was there any pressure growing up to follow in your father's footsteps, or were you encouraged to find your own path? How did you first get into music?
Well, the thing is that we kind of forced our dad and our mom, because when we saw those concerts, we'd pick up like mops and brooms and like mimic them, because there was an album called the Jackson Live album. So we had that on repeat, and we were just kind of mimicking and miming, the songs, and we knew every step at that point. And my mom and dad always said whatever we wanted to do, they would support us, no matter what. But we kept pushing them into music. It was music and baseball. And so my mom, once she realized how much we wanted it, she was like a drill sergeant. She made us work for it. She's like, well, you're not going to just rest on your laurels on this name. You're going to work for it. We practiced every day. Right after school, we went home. And if we didn't practice, we got in trouble. And my mom knew that the biggest threat would be taking away our music. So she, like, if we got in trouble, it's like, okay, no music. And so that was the thing for us. While other kids kind of got to play around and go to, and other stuff and whatever, we went straight home and rehearsed.
And where did your band's name come from? Obviously, your names all start with T3T,
Yeah.
But was that a name that you had early on, or is it a name you kind of just called yourselves anyway?
My mom used to call us her 3Ts all the time. And when we were thinking of names, we were called the 3Ts for the longest time. And then my Uncle Michael basically said, call it 3T because it's edgier. 3T sounds kind of 50-ish, like an old, like the Four Tops, or, so, which is not anything. It's just, it's dated in that way. And so he wanted us to be kind of a 90s version of something. So he suggested 3T, and that we never looked back after that.
Amazing. And so your first album came out in 1995, Brotherhood. How long were you working on that album before release? Did you have to go and practice dance moves, or did you record the album and then work it out song by song? How are you going to perform it?
Well, we first, we got approached by Motown when I was in my teens, probably 13, 14 years old, and we auditioned for them, but we were so shy. They're like, your boy, I remember the guy said, your boys are so talented, but they're so shy. They need more years of, breaking out of their shell. And so it wasn't until we created a demo, and we spent about 2 years working on a demo, like a couple of demo songs for Sony at the time, and we got signed to Sony. We got signed to Epic, and then later on, my uncle formed a company at Sony and stole us away from Epic. But we originally were signed to Epic. We weren't signed to his label. He sold us away. But that's how it pretty much started for us. And then with Brotherhood, I would say about 2 years of making the album, because we also had school, and we were going off of what my uncle used to teach us, which was basically, our Uncle Michael, he would teach us, record a lot of songs and pick your best songs out of that. And so we wrote a lot of songs, and only certain songs made it. However, in that time period, that's when my mom was murdered, basically. It was in 94. So it was almost like okay, do we just crumple and stop recording? Or she was our manager at the time. She was our biggest cheerleader. Or do we finish this and dedicate this album to her? And so half the songs in Brotherhood she's heard, and half the songs she hadn't heard. So certain songs made the album because they were her favorite songs, and other songs she never even heard, like anything she never heard.
I was so sorry to hear about your mum when that happened, by the way. It was horrific. You've now launched the Dee Dee Jackson Foundation?
Yes, yeah. I think we're on our third or fourth year on that, and that's been such an honor. And maybe even fifth year. We've always wanted to do something in our mom's name, because she was so charitable. She was known throughout the baseball community and the school community as having fundraisers and really helping out people. And so we knew that that's what we wanted to do. It seemed so overwhelming. And so when we had our own TV show, that was part of the narrative. I made sure, I didn't think that they would do it because TV is usually so negative, but I was like, I want a positive arc on mine. And so I'm like, I want to create this foundation that we've always wanted to create. And to my surprise, they said yes. And so I had some help in creating it, like with the paperwork and all that stuff, but it's me, Taryll, and TJ's. It's our foundation.
And so can you tell me a bit about those music therapy classes? How do they work?
The thing with music therapy, it's really interesting because kids, when they grieve, sometimes they don't know how to talk to other people, or they don't want to talk to other people. But when you teach them how to write music, they sometimes, through their lyrics or through something, they'll end up saying how they feel, even though they don't know that that's what they're doing. They're putting it into their music. And so a lot of it becomes therapeutic through music, and music already has a healing power to it. But the fact is that when you have young people that don't know how to really, I don't even want to say speak their words, but speak what's in their, what they're feeling, but they can put it to music. It works wonders in that way, and it's proven to be the case. And so that's exciting for us when we see a kid that originally was really closed down, and by the end of our, the music therapy classes, he's active or she's active, and they're smiling and all that stuff. That there's no other reward, that you have from that.
It sounds like an amazing cause, and I hope people get behind and support it.
Oh, thank you.
So Brotherhood came out, and you released several music videos for it and singles. Which were your favorite music videos to record?
To record, huh? Anything was special because it was our first one, and when it's your first one, you're like all excited. You're like, oh, this is, we're doing a music video. And I remember my grandma was there, all our best friends were there. Like, I've seen some behind the scenes footage recently, so I'm cheating in a way. And it was like a big ordeal for us. And then I would say why was very special because it was our uncle, and to actually do a project with your uncle. I mean, yes, he was, why there's a duet with Michael Jackson, but you have to also remember his backgrounds were already recorded when we started singing over them and singing the verses, even though he did do his line with us later on. But this felt official. This was like, oh, this is a music video with Michael Jackson, and this is unique and different. This is something that, so many people don't get to do. Majority of people dream of this. And so, but it was funny because we came so serious in the video. Like, when we arrived, we were like really serious, like, this is our video. And, and he came joking, and he was making, jokes, and you can see it in the video. He played around a lot, and we didn't know, like, we were so tensed, and we were like, you know, like this video has to be perfect because the song's so great. And at the end, he was right, because he wanted to capture the essence of our relationship. And our relationship wasn't serious ever. You know, me and my brothers and him, we joked around all the time. We always had fun. We always laughed. And he wanted to capture that. And so now I look at the video, I'm like, you know, that video makes me smile because that's us with him, you know. And a lot of the outtakes they used of us just joking around. And so that's what I really love about that video.
So it must have been interesting, because obviously you grew up with him, and then say to you, he was just your uncle, and obviously you knew he sang and performed around the world and stuff. But then when you got on set with him, do you kind of see him in a different light, because then suddenly he's Michael Jackson, the performer, and you're working with one of the best in the world?
It was weird, not for our music video, because he was joking the whole time. That was almost like, I was so scared, like, is this video going to turn out right? Because do they have the shot? I was a director in my mind thinking like all this stuff, but that's why I was saying he was right in hindsight, because he knew what the video needed. We had been on so many sets. We were on Captain EO set, Stranger in Moscow. You know, we were on the Smith Criminal set, or Moonwalker set. So seeing him perform and all that stuff, that wasn't new to us in that way. So him doing a music video with us, I had to pinch myself a couple times because he's sitting, you know, right next to me. But besides that, it was like, I don't know, it was just normal. I mean, that's weird to say, but it was normal, yeah, for us.
Sure. And did you ever, obviously you did a duet with Michael Jackson, did you ever consider releasing a song with Janet Jackson at all?
You know, the thing is with our uncle, we've never asked. We never asked for him to be on our album. You know, we never asked for him to do the music video. He always offered. Like, he's the one that said, I want to do a duet with you guys. And, you know, here's the song for it. And same thing with I Need You. He wanted to sing, well, with some coercing with Dennis Pop and Max Martin. You know, he ended up singing on I Need You. But we never asked. Like, because the thing was for us is that he was always Uncle Michael. And we didn't want to be the kind of nephews that were like, oh, we see your, you know, who you are, so can you do this for us? We weren't like that. And so he had to suggest it. So
the album Brotherhood went on to sell over 3 million copies around the world. How did life change for you at that point?
You know, it's sad because we were not satisfied. You know, you would think other people would be satisfied. Oh, wow, you know, you're even in America, like our first song, anything, you know, went platinum, sold 1 million copies. We weren't happy because it wasn't number one. It never hit number one. So that's all we could think about was like, this song should have hit number one, because it hit number one in every state, basically, radio play. It wasn't synchronized. And so it didn't help us. And so we're always looking at ourselves as, I don't want to say a failure, but we have to do better. And it wasn't, yeah, we did that because we were comparing ourselves to our legacy, basically.
Right.
And so when you're selling out arenas and then you go, you know, a couple days later and you see Michael Jackson selling out stadiums, you're like, we have work to do, you know. And it wasn't until our uncle said, basically we were complaining to him, like we complained a lot to him in terms of that, because he was a good sounding board, and he put things in perspective. He said, your first album sold better than our first album did. And when he said that changed everything for me, at least. I was like, I didn't believe it, first of all. But then when he said that, then I looked and I was like, okay, that's different. You know, now we do have some kind of success in that way. But yeah, I mean, we were always chasing the legacy, wanting to be better and bigger and never satisfied. And I regret that.
Yeah, because I guess when you're just starting out and you see someone at the top of their profession, you forget the journey they went on to get there. So I think the first Jackson 5 album came out in about 1969-ish, thereabouts. Yes. And then so Thriller came out obviously in the 1980s, but there's this big journey through the 70s where it wasn't the biggest album of all time, right?
Yeah. And progression, and that's the thing. And you forget that because and it's the same thing with anything in this world right now. We see people on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and we just see the aftermath of, and when I'm talking about people that are now famous and stuff like that, but we don't see oh, they've been on that platform for 10 years or 5 years.
Yeah.
I know TikTok's new, but in terms of that, where they started with X amount of followers, now they have this, they built it. And,
Yeah.
you don't see that, you just see the stardom.
So you also wrote several songs for movies as well, Men in Black, Free Willy 1 and 2. How did you get involved with those?
Free Willy, Men in Black, we didn't write, we sung on them.
Oh, sorry.
Taryll wrote on Free Willy.
Sure.
Taryll wrote the song Didn't Mean to Hurt You, which was one of our demo songs.
Right.
And how that happened was Jerry Greenberg from MJJ heard the song because it was our demo, and he said, this has to be on the Free Willy soundtrack. And so that's how that song ended up being on Free Willy, which was what was our very first, let me rephrase that, not our very first, because we did a little interlude for the Jackson American Dream soundtrack, which was like a minute long or something like that. But this was our very first official movie that, being the soundtrack of. And same thing with Men in Black. What ended up happening was one of the songs that we had called Thinking, which was literally the first song we ever recorded for our album, for Brotherhood, didn't make the album, but we always liked it. And so because, I'm sorry, Thinking was on G's Tripping. We had three songs on three different soundtracks. Waiting for Love was a song that we, Soul Shock and Carlin produced, and we didn't write as well, but we ended up singing on it, and that became on Men in Black soundtrack. And that was something else that MJJ was involved in. And that taught us the lesson to write your own stuff, because those checks that I'm sure they got were huge, because Men in Black soundtrack ended up selling like 8 million copies. So
right, yeah.
I wish we would have taken a song that we didn't use off our album that we had written, because that would have been a nice royalty check. But I'm happy for them.
Exactly. Well, they're still making Men in Black films now, so maybe you can get on like the 5th one or something.
Yeah, no, it was, the soundtrack thing was incredible, because there were songs that we were very passionate about, but they couldn't make our Brotherhood album because you can only put back then you can only put a certain amount of songs on a CD. It was limited by space.
So in 2001, I remember it very clearly, Michael Jackson announced that he was doing a 30th anniversary celebration show at Madison Square Garden and reuniting with Jackson 5. Obviously, I never got to see the Jackson 5 perform when I was a kid. So I decided to max out a credit card and flew to New York, which I was paying off many years later, by the way. And I went to Madison Square Garden and I saw the Jackson 5 perform, which was incredible. Did you go to that concert? Were you involved in it in any way?
Unfortunately, us and LaToya were the only two family members out of the whole family that didn't go. And the reason we didn't go was because at that point, we were kind of in negotiations with Sony to leave Sony, because they were holding us hostage because of the Michael spat with Tommy Mottola and Sony and all that stuff. And so we were kind of stuck in the middle, because we were on both companies. We were on MJJ and Sony. And so we were terrified, because they asked us to perform in it on there. I forgot which group they wanted us to perform with, but it wasn't with our family. It wasn't. Otherwise, we probably would have done it anyway. But we were scared of like getting on their radar and then them holding us again. We were very close to being released at that point. And so we were like, we don't want to do anything that is like a little signal of a heartbeat, so that Sony goes, no, we're going to keep them now because they have something going on. And so we ended up staying. And the reason we stayed at home, because I knew if we went to New York, we would have been upset, and regretful. But that's also when 9/11 happened. So it was terrifying, because our whole family was in New York except for us and LaToya. And so we didn't know anything, like the whole family. So yeah, that was very scary. And I'll never forget when my friend Petra called me up, hysterical, woke me up, and I was just like, what? And she's like, New York's under attack or something like that. And I was just like, and the only thing I could think of was that's where my family, and I tried to call everyone and no one was answering. So it was just that panic attack and that terror.
It was awful. And there was kind of a rumor at the time too that 3T were working on an unreleased album, and you'd actually recorded about 20 songs for it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We had that album done already, and we were supposed to release it, and that was when the argument with Michael and Sony happened. And so it was, our debate was, do we release it? And an album that we worked 2 years on ended up being shelved by Sony, out of revenge for Michael, or but but Sony's at the same time saying, oh no, we're not going to do that to you, and so it's like it was a trust issue of like, well, how do we know you're not going to do that to us? So we ended up holding on to it, and so that was our follow-up album. That was the album that we had taken all the traveling that we had done, the world stuff, and basically this was the album that we're like, okay, this is the one that's going to get them. This is the one that's going to, this is the album that we're so proud of, and it never got released.
So what's kind of happened with that? So does Sony just still own it? Is there a way of getting it back in any way, or for them to release it, or do you not want them to at this point?
We did finally get it back after Michael passed. My dad and I don't know if I can say who else helped, but but a couple people helped on our behalf to get it released from Sony. And in their defense, they were very nice about doing that. And so we did get our album back finally. And now it's the case of we want to do something special with it, because we fought blood, sweat and tears for it, and it's been so long. So now there has to be something special done for it. But it's an album that definitely needs to be heard, and we're proud of it. So
absolutely,
you will hear the album eventually.
Good. I very much look forward to that.
Oh, I'm looking forward to people hearing it, because a lot of it, I would say 99% of it was live instruments and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's not very dated in that way. So that's a benefit to us. Like if I played songs off of it, and you wouldn't know if it was done yesterday or 20 years ago.
Does the album still exist in the same form it did? So from what I understood, you recorded about 20 songs and you picked 12 to go on the album. So would that mean you'd also have additional songs you could release in the future?
We do have additional songs. I think we have about 16 songs like finished, basically recorded and finished for that album. There's a couple of other songs that we might want to finish up because they're not finished, but to make it maybe a double CD or something like that. There's a song called I'm So Alone that Taryll wrote that my uncle loved. We tried singing with him on it one time, but we don't know where the recording is because he sung the choruses with us. It's a very big anthem. But it was during his recordings of his album too, so it might be under his masters in that way,
Yeah.
We don't have it, so that's the thing. If we had it, we'd probably approach Sony and my cousins and ask if we should finish the song or not, but we don't have it.
Sure, but it's something you're still actively working on.
You're saying the second album?
Yeah.
It's something that we advocate towards. I'm probably the biggest advocate of my brothers in a way, because I've never not wanted it to come out.
Yeah.
They have other things that they're doing as well, like they're doing their solo stuff and whatever. So for them, they do want this to come out, but they also want their music to come out and stuff like that. But I've never not want, like if they said tomorrow we're releasing it, I'd be like, okay, let's do it. So off whatever, I will send you some songs.
Oh, seriously? That'd be amazing. Thank you so much.
No, definitely, because I've done that and whatever. But I will do that. I can't. Some people have heard, like we've played certain songs like throughout the years and stuff like that. I'm very proud of it. So
yeah, I can't wait to hear it. Like I love all of your music, so the fact that more exists is very exciting to me.
Thank you. Well, the interesting thing about the Lost album, well, I call it the Lost album. I shouldn't call that anymore. The interesting thing about the second album was that the reason why it's so sentimental to us is because our uncle was very instrumental in it. Like we would play songs for him and say, what do you think about this song? And, he would give suggestions like this song needs that, or I love this song. This song should be your first, single off of it. And so there's a sentimental connection to it. That's why we're not just throwing it out there, because it's connected to our uncle, and our uncle, produced it as well. Like he was executive producer on it. So it does have a meaning to us. So we want to make sure that it's done right.
Once you'd recorded this, and I guess you'd realized that your album was locked away, how long was it before you started working on your second album, technically your third album, Identity?
Yeah, I would say the hardest thing was we were basically in like a standstill, frozen, because we were still under Sony at a certain point. And so we couldn't do music. We couldn't do anything, At one point, we were told that we were going to go off of Sony and go to DreamWorks Records, which was a newly formed, record company that DreamWorks was working on. That took about a year and nothing happened, so that was a year of hoping. I would say 2002-ish is when we started working on another album, when we got finally free enough to work on another album. Also psychologically free, because it was, at that point we were so jaded by the industry and so upset, and an album that we spent 2 years working on not getting released, and also watching our peers like Backstreet Boys, Spice Girls, NSYNC explode, and have worldwide stardom, and you're on the sidelines basically watching this, for years and years and years. And we used to tour, we used to do the same shows that they did, and be in the same club, and now we're on the sidelines watching them laugh and giggle and have fun. And it was just hard. It was mentally hard for us. So I would say that was the case in terms of getting back in the mentality of everything. So yeah, 2 years, and then I think 2003 or 4 is when Identity was released. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think 2004.
I know. I should know.
It's fine. It's out. You don't need to remember when it came out. Now, it's a while ago.
Yeah, we worked on it for a long time, so I don't even know when it came out, because it came out in different. It did come out in France first, and then it went to Holland. So, and then Germany, and then I think so. It went down its road. But Identity was interesting because it was our first independent album. And when I say independent, it wasn't literally through a major. What we did was we did a distribution deal through a label, and so it was a different mindset. We didn't have the big dogs pushing us and promoting us in that way. We funded it ourselves. So when you saw a music video, 1/3 of that was we had to pay for, and that's when music videos were still expensive. So we've put a lot of money back into us as an investment.
And so the album features the song "Stuck on You," which is a cover of the Lionel Richie classic. How does it work in getting? Can you just pick any song and go, "I'm going to do a cover of that"? Or do you need permission from the studio that owns the song, or the performer that wrote or sung it? Or?
That's a good question. See, I wouldn't be able to answer that. See, Lionel's always been a friend of ours, and we used to go to Hawaii with Lionel, and the family and like that. So I'm not the perfect person to ask, and we actually did "Stuck on You" as a tribute to Lionel. We didn't think it was going to be a single. We spent probably a day, doing the instruments and recording and singing it. So it wasn't one of the songs that we spent the most time on either, but that was the song that the distribution company liked the most in there, and so that became our first single. But we were just doing it as a tribute to Lionel because we just love Lionel Richie and his songwriting, his everything. He's amazing. And so, and to say that, this is the first time we've probably said this, or I don't care if I get in trouble by my brothers, but we are we just got the music video in high definition in terms of the "Stuck on You" video. So we're actually, Lionel's birthday is next month, and so we're going to release it on his birthday as a thank you.
Oh,
so,
wow.
"Stuck on You" in high definition, yeah.
I can't wait to see
it's going to be interesting because the video's never been in high def and all that stuff. And recently there was a TikTok phase or dance craze to the song, which I didn't even know about, like 4.5 or 8 million views on this dance craze that I didn't even know that they were dancing to our version of "Stuck on You." So on TikTok, yeah. It's from Asia, but it's like, it just was amazing because we didn't even know about it.
I love how on TikTok they take well-known songs and they reinvent them and modernize them for today with new dances.
It was great, and I didn't even know that they even knew our song in that way, because Asia wasn't one of the countries that we went to with Identity. So it was just amazing that someone found the song, danced to it, and other people started doing the dance. And so I was very grateful about that. And so, yeah, this is another thing that, was exciting.
Made me remember too, I went to Australia for work one time, and on the flight out there, I watched all the movies. It was well over a decade ago, so they didn't have a massive amount, so I'd watched everything. And on the flight back, 24-hour flight, there's only like 2 things I hadn't seen, so I watched those, and I had about 8 hours of time left. True story. I listened to Lionel Richie for 8 hours. I listened to live albums. Just everything's great.
Oh,
Just
I
like
could believe it. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, he's one of those, because he's so humble, he's one of those legends that he's great, but he still doesn't get the credit he deserves. Like if you think about his catalog and his music and how he's changed, the trajectory of music as well. I mean, this has power ballads for days and just, I don't know. I mean, I can talk about Lionel, but he was also, he's one of those celebrities and performers that I look up to because he's never gotten the big head, and that was one of the things. I grew up watching my uncles and my dad, and they never had the big head. My grandma and my grandpa wouldn't have tolerated it, first of all, but second, they just didn't have that. But then I've been around celebrities that have the big head, and it hurts me in a way because it's like I just don't understand that. I don't understand why they would have that. But Lionel's been someone that's always been a beacon for me in terms of, this is a man that's the top of the top, and he's always been one of the, you can talk to anyone that's met Lionel and they'll tell you the same story. He's one of the nicest celebrities they've met, and I'm proud of that in a way. Even though I'm not related to him, I feel like I am family with him.
Go forwards to 2009. Michael Jackson famously flew over to the UK and announced what he said was going to be his final tour, This Is It. As I'd seen him in 2001, I of course got tickets for that. I still have this, so I've got the tickets. Of course, on the 25th of June that year, he passed away. It must have been beyond devastating for your family. And how was it back then? Like, how did you cope? Was it just like losing anyone else, or?
The interesting thing is that, when it's Michael Jackson, they just recently with Kobe, it was when the family has to find out through a new, instead of find out through police or what, they have to find it through a news organization like TMZ. That's exactly what happened with our uncle. Me and my brothers, we were recording, and then at Taryll's house, we were just starting to record our next album. That's why we were there. And we saw on TMZ something about Michael Jackson cardiac arrest or something. And at that time they hadn't said he was dead, but they said that and so we didn't know if it was a joke or not. But then, we were starting to panic, and because we couldn't get a hold of anyone. And so we were just watching TMZ like everyone else was. And then when they announced him dead, it just was a shock to us. And the first thing we thought of was not, it was his kids. It was, we have to be there for his kids like he was there for us. And so that was the first thing we thought of, was, where's Prince, Paris, and BG, or Blanket at the time? Where are they? Because we need to, make sure that they are okay. So we put our album and everything on hold, and basically made sure that, I think they're at, which is where they kind of, went to. We were there pretty much every day, helping my grandma at the time, kind of raise them the way that we knew that our uncle wanted them to be raised. Because we were so close to them that we knew what our uncle wanted from them. We knew what they expected. We knew their lifestyle. A lot of people that came in didn't know how they were raised or why they were raised a certain way, what he wanted from them and stuff like that. We did. So we felt like we should be there, and we were there.
Yeah, and then I think it was 2010, you all went to the Grammys together and accepted the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yes, from Lionel. The interesting thing, a lot of people don't know, is we were right there with them. We were there from the beginning, and we actually had, we're on the side if you watch the thing, but they wanted us to go up and be there with them. And we're like, no, this is their time. And I'm happy we did that. For me, they are, the legacy of Michael Jackson. And for us, me and my brothers, even though as close as we were to my uncle, we are not his kids in that way. And so I think the world needed to see his kids in that. And so that's why we I shouldn't say allowed, that's why we waited on the sidelines in that way, because it was about them, not us.
Sure. And how are the kids, well, adults now, how are they doing?
They're doing, well, besides all this, what's going on and stuff like that, they're doing good. It's hard because I can only imagine being Michael Jackson's kid. I'm Michael Jackson's nephew, and I know how much I want to fight people. And I'm not saying physically, but just in terms of all the rumors and lies and stuff. And you kind of have to brush that off. And certain family members are better at it than others. Certain ones could care, that's not going to affect my life. Others, they absorb, and we saw the difference. Paris is someone that absorbs it, and Prince is someone that brushes it off. And it's just a different mechanism, but it hurts the same either way. And so they're doing the best they can do, but I'm super proud of all of them in that way, because what they've had to endure and what they've had to being under that spotlight and that limelight, and people waiting for you to either trip and fall or to pick you apart like they did, your dad. It's not a place I would prefer to be.
So you've always had, 3T's always had this connection with the UK. In 2014, you got involved in the big reunion. How did you get involved with that? Because there were very British bands apart from 3T. How did that come about?
We met with a production company that, and we pitched them an idea of doing a documentary, because we were at that time going to do a documentary called Living with the Legacy, which was going to talk about what it was like growing up in the Jackson legacy, and talking about the second album that never happened and everything like that. And they said, well, we have this show called Big Reunion. It's not really, you don't really fit in there because it's about bands that have broken up and, are reunited, but we might be able to tell your story on that. And, you guys have a big show at the end and all that stuff. So they sold us on that, but they said that we were going to have an hour episode. Which we ended up not having. Our episode was 20 minutes, and then it was everyone else. So they kind of, I don't want to say the word lied, but they sold us something that they didn't. Yeah. But that could have been a network thing. That could have not been the production company, which I truly believe that that's the case, because I really like the production company. I really believe them. So, but I know networks, and they're like, no, we got to go to here. And at the end of the day, it's their money. And so they're the boss. And so that's kind of how we got on, was basically we thought that we were doing a documentary on us, of what life was like growing up being a Jackson. And so we always, even with the big reunion, when we were doing rehearsal, we were always thinking, okay, when our episode comes, people are going to understand what happened to the second album and this and that. And so a lot of that was on the cutting floor. They even interviewed my grandma for I think a while, and that even didn't, they didn't use any of that. They interviewed her for I think 40 minutes. And so I don't understand what the deal was of that. But yeah, I just know, when I say deal, I don't mean money deal. I just meant why they didn't do that, because there was no money deal for my grandma. But I don't understand. I just didn't, because if you have the chance to interview Catherine Jackson, I would be using every clip that she's on, in that way. Right. But yeah, it was a great experience. For me, it helped me get my mojo back, because I really, at that point, we were kind of defeated, because even though identity was big in certain countries, it wasn't big all over, like we were used to and accustomed to. And it really never even came out in the UK, which is one of our biggest markets. And so we were really excited to come back to the UK and at least reintroduce ourselves. And it was with comrades. And even though a lot of the groups we didn't know at the time, we knew their names, but we didn't know them personally. Mm-hmm. We ended up becoming friends, and we still are friends. We still keep in contact, and it's amazing, because I root for all of them. The groups are amazing. It was a camaraderie that I really appreciate even to this day. So I'm happy we did the big reunion, even though I complained that whole time. I'm really happy that we did it, because it did give me my mojo back. I felt like I have friends in the industry that had that journey with me, and that I appreciate, and they appreciate us as well. And yeah, so I'm really glad that I did it. I remember at the time, I thought it was huge that they had 3T on the show. I mean, there was a couple of the bands, honestly, I hadn't heard of. Mm-hmm. So it was really interesting. And you went on tour as well, didn't you, after the show was out? That was fun. The touring is where we really got to know everyone and kind of bond. And that was the best part of the whole thing, was because that's always the best part, is touring for me. That was the reward for Brotherhood. And a lot of people don't even know that we funded our own tour on Brotherhood, because Sony wanted us to go back and record another album right away. And we said, no way, we're touring, because, you know, that's what we grew up watching our dad do and our uncles do. And that's what, you know, and I'm like, that's the rewards for the album. And so we ended up funding our own tour. We struck a merchandise deal, and we ended up taking that merchandise deal and funding our tour with it. So we were always about betting on ourselves.
Did it pay off, that tour? So I imagine it must have been ridiculously expensive with hotels and travel and flights and all that kind of thing.
You know, every city paid for the next city, basically.
Oh,
We didn't make, it wasn't a profitable tour, but it was, I don't have any regrets on the tour. The only thing I regret is that this channel Viva, or in Germany, was supposed to sponsor the tour. And we were always MTV Germany. Like, MTV Germany played us a lot. Viva, I think it is. Viva played Backstreet Boys. That's all they played. Like, so they had no room for 3T. So I thought it was really weird that they wanted to sponsor our tour, but they were the biggest at that time. So we were like, oh, of course, you know, and they ended up leaving after the first show and not sponsoring it. Yeah. And so we never got that support from Germany. So Germany is the only country we lost money in that way, because it was never promoted. No one knew about the concerts. So
it's really tough. And then a year later, you had the Lifetime documentary series, The Jacksons' Next Generation. How did that come about, and what was it like being in a reality show, I guess, for quite a prolonged period of time with cameras following you around?
That was our second attempt at doing a documentary. You know, and everything's been about, like, people really understanding who we were and what our life was like. And our friend Henry Capana, who's no longer with us, but we grew up with him at Buckley, our school, and so he was a childhood friend. He had a production company, and he's like, I get you guys. I lived, you know, through you guys and all that stuff, and we shot a pilot that Lifetime loved, and Lifetime said, oh, this is perfect, and then ended up episodes later changing stuff and wanting it to be more like the Kardashians as opposed to our show, and more, I don't want to say scripted, but more planned out. See, we never wanted that to be. We wanted it to always be real and always be, we'll let the cameras in if they capture us, really what we're like, what our dynamic is like. I don't care if we're arguing, but if we're arguing about music, you know, but we don't usually argue about being brothers. We argue about songs, you know, and fight for a song. That's just us. But they needed drama, and they needed this and that. And so it became something that I stepped away from. Like in episode 6, which was their last episode, I'm not even in, because episode 4 was supposed to be about my mom, you know, and that was where the foundation, you know, and all that stuff. But the first thing I said, and before we started shooting, I said, everyone always focuses on the Jacksons, but I'm a Martez as well. And I want my mom's side of the family to be represented, because we can't have a show about who we are and not show my mom's side of the family, because, you know, me being half, you know, Dominican, half Puerto Rican is just as important as me being a Jackson in that way. And they promised me, they're like, oh, yes, you know. Well, the networks, when it came to that time, my mom's sister was interviewed, you know, about talking, you know, stories about my mom. You know, her friends were interviewed. They cut all of that out, you know, and it was only a minute and a half of that episode, and they cut it out. And I said, never, I'm not participating in anymore. I'll do the bare minimum of what I'm contractually obligated to do. But I was like, that's one of the reasons I did the show, because I wanted to show my mom's side of the family that never gets shown, and how they've made 3T just as much as the Jackson family has made 3T.
You're 50% of both of your parents.
Well, they shot the footage too, and the hardest thing for us was that we had to go back to my aunt, and, you know, and my Uncle Mike, and my Aunt Lourdes, and my Uncle Mike, and you know, her friend Sandy, and say, you're not in this episode. The episode about my mom, you're not. They cut you out. I mean, that's just it's the one thing that I hate about the industry, and I said that's what I want our show to not do, and it did, and that's when I was out. I said, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all.
I'm very principle oriented in general, and it's just I give in a lot, I gave in to a lot of stuff that they asked for, because I knew that this is something that I will, they say die on the hill. This is something I'll die on the hill for. At the end of the day, the network said, okay, well, fine. They didn't care anyway, because they had, I think Prince was, there was a narrative with Prince and TJ or something. So they're like, we don't need you anyway. And so, yeah.
Most unnecessary. Yeah, so hopefully you get to do another project.
Real quick, I just do want to say, Lifetime was our friend Henry, which is why, I respect him so much. Every other place that we were going to do this show or documentary, they wanted Michael's kids, and we said that's a no starter in that case. If Michael's kids are involved, that's a no. Now, what ended up happening, Lifetime and Henry's company said, no problem, it's about you guys. And what ended up happening was that Prince and all of them wanted to be in the show. We couldn't get Prince out of the cameras at certain points because he was so close to us, and he's like, he wanted to know what we were doing, like and so that camping trip, same thing with BG. He's in that camping trip because he wanted to be there. We said, BG, we'll cut around you whenever. He's like, no, I want to be part of this, because it showed our dynamic. And him, there's a segment of me and him pranking the cousins, and that's BG. Like, BG is always about, like, we had that camaraderie where we like to, team up and stuff like that. So it was a great dynamic, but we made sure that there's no contractual reason for them to be in it at all.
Right.
That's, everyone's used them for that. I could easily, I could sell shows right now by saying, oh, they're part of it, but you can't, you have to sleep at night.
Right, exactly. And you want to do things with integrity and authenticity.
That's all I have. That's the thing. That's all anyone has at the end of the day. And once you sell that, that's it.
And there's another reason I'm so grateful for you coming on my show today, actually. It means a lot.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm just super appreciative. I remember you've always been a stark defender, and I appreciate that. And I don't forget that, in general. And at the same time, I don't, whether it's your show or any other show, I treat every show the same way, because I've been, I appreciate everyone. I really, truly do. You're taking time talking to me. I'm taking time talking to you.
It's very true.
Yeah.
But, my first ever album was from Michael Jackson's Bad. And then my first CD I ever got was History. The double.
It's a good CD to have. Yeah.
Right. See your family. You're not my family, but you kind of, you like.
No. I totally agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's the thing. That's one of the things that I've always said about the Jackson community and the Jackson. We are family in a way, because we're bound by music, and we're bound by, my family, their music doesn't just represent, put it, headphones on, listen to it. There's messages, and there's codes in terms of, like, be a good person, or, don't, you have to, I don't see a lot of selfish Jackson fans in terms of, like, if they really studied the music and studied the message of Michael and Janet and my dad and my uncles and all that stuff, their music was always about helping others and being happy and all that stuff. It was not, about, get ahead and all, do whatever you can to get ahead, and who cares about this person, step on this person. And so I do think if you really do study their music and you appreciate their music, you kind of grow up a different way. You grow up a way with different ethics. Because the music translates everywhere, and my family did. They, didn't matter what country it was or whatever, there's a certain respect that I have as well, because, but for the culture and the fans.
And I love that music kind of transcends, different, even languages. When you see people on YouTube sometimes that perhaps don't even speak English, but they learn through music. And I love things like that.
It is. Well, I mean, I've seen studies with music and classical music with plants. It's like there's something that music does to people's soul and their energy. And so it's something that knowing that you have that capability, there's a responsibility at the same time. You can feed a positive part of that or a negative part of that. And our families always, aim to the positive side of that and make people happier, make people feel good about themselves. Or, you know, the best compliments I have is when I see kids, you know, little babies or whatever, listening to Jackson 5 or Michael or Janet or whatever, you know, and they're just dancing or whatever. They sense the music that's, you know, or they're just smiling or they're just nodding. They like, somehow they understand the music.
What did you think of the Michael Jackson song, Hold My Hand?
It's an amazing song in general. I never forget in Vegas, my uncle played me that song for the first time. And it was still rough when he played it. It wasn't, you know, still demo. But I heard the song, I heard his voice, and I said, this is a #1 song. And I smiled, you know, and I was just so happy because it was like, first of all, he would play songs for us often, but it was never, this one was different because he played it for me he really wanted to know my opinion. When normally he would just play it, it would be, you know, in the car or whatever, we'd be going somewhere or whatever in that way. But this one, he actually wanted to know what I thought about the song. And on that honor that he gave me to do that, I was like, wow. But then the song itself, when I was able to say, I love this song, this is a #1 song, made me even feel happy because I was like, you know, you're entrusting me with my opinion, and my opinion is going to be a good one. And I'll never forget that memory of that.
It's amazing that you have that and so many memories. And I think families live on through memories, don't they? And while they are gone, they sort of live on as long as the people that remember them do. And I think that's kind of great.
It is, but the hard thing when you're a relative of Michael Jackson, and there's other people, you know, in certain categories and camps that want to change that memory and want to pollute that memory. And that's the thing for me. You know, I talked about, you know, in Square One, this other documentary, that basically there's that memory of me, you know, at the Stranger Moscow shoot where we shot the cover for Y, and this guy that doesn't even know us and wasn't even there is trying to tell me what my memory was of that and how that it was a negative memory, when for me, I'm like, no, I was there. I physically was there. I was part of that memory, and no way are you going to change that memory, but how dare you try and do that? I would never try and tell someone who was actually there what you were thinking or what the motive was behind it. It's like your memory, your how you were and how you perceive something is yours. That's through your eyes and through your ears. You know, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but it's yours. And I wouldn't have the guts or, you know, the ignorance to do that to someone.
In 2016, you released Chapter 3. Well,
Yes.
it's technically Chapter 4, but Chapter 3.
Yeah, it's technically Chapter 4. Yeah, we fought for that. Like, what was it going to? But yeah, Chapter 3. Chapter 3 was interesting because that was something that one of the reasons we did do we call it a docuseries, even though it's a reality show, was because we wanted to document the making of the album. What ended up happening was that they didn't want to document the making of the album. So by the time the series was about to close, we were like, we need an album. So we worked on it very hard. We had written throughout or whatever, but we really had to finish it up because we wanted to have some kind of reward for us in terms of, this is the reason we did it, was here's the album, you know. And I love that album. There's a lot to that album in terms of, because there's certain songs that are, I would say, what was it? You said 2014?
2016.
2016. There's songs on that album that were written before Michael passed. You know, like songs like I Do. That song was started in Vegas, and we put it aside, and that was going to be one of the songs on our new album. But when Michael passed, we delayed that. But there's songs, a lot of songs on there were earlier songs from way earlier, and then a lot of them were brand new songs. So there's a mixture of that. But that's a long in the making album in that way.
Have you got any favorite songs from the album? And also looking back, what are your favorite songs that you've ever worked on across any album?
Anything is off of Brotherhood, anything was very special because anything was recorded at Havenhurst. Not recorded, was written at Havenhurst, the same place that Billie Jean and Beat It, and that was because the '94 earthquake happened, and we moved to Havenhurst while our house was getting repaired. So we were I stayed in Michael's room, like I had Michael's room. I don't know who between TJ and Taryll, if they had Janet and LaToya's room. I don't know who had which, and so anything was recorded started at Havenhurst in terms of, Taryll and TJ started the chords and all that stuff at Havenhurst, and we wrote the lyrics at Havenhurst. So there's a certain magic to that, I think, in terms of that song. I would say Give Me All Your Lovin' from Brotherhood, just because that was one of my mom's favorite songs. So that, and it was a very happy song. I would say from Identity, well, I mean, there's so many other songs. Words Without Meaning was one of my uncle's favorite songs off of Brotherhood. He loved that song, and there's a story where he told, I didn't know I was a good singer until he told me that he loved how I sung, and that song especially, and the vibrato. And you're always your worst critic, but then when he said it, it was so genuine, and I knew he meant it, because he was always so uplifting and made you feel good. But if he gave you a direct compliment, it was rare, but you knew he meant it. He didn't lie about his compliments. He would help you lift up by something else. But when he said, I like your voice, or I like how you do that, then you knew that was real. And so Words Without Meaning became a special song in that way. Even though I hated the way I sang it, he loved it. And the song on the Brotherhood album is actually the demo, because I did the demo of it. I was planning on beating that demo, and he's like, no, don't change it. It's perfect. And I ended up trying to beat the demo. I had like 2 hours in a studio to beat it, and I never beat it. So that's the song. The demo is the version in there. So that's Brotherhood. But Identity, basically, gosh. Stuck on You, obviously, Sex Appeal, which was a song that was very before Justin Timberlake did Like I Love You and all that stuff. It has that same vibe, but Sex Appeal was written way before Like I Love You.
Right.
And I have friends that attest to that. They're like, wow, this is a new sound and everything. Then Like I Love You came out, and now it sounds like Sex Appeal was a derivative of that, which it wasn't at all. And so that was frustrating, because it took so long for the album to come out that it seemed like ours was kind of later. I would say They Say, which is one of my favorite songs that we've done in that, but never got the justice. There's a lot of songs, and then Chapter 3, it's I Do, which is a song I got married to. That was our first wedding dance. It's a song that I started, which I usually don't start songs. Like I'm the person that kind of comes in the middle and like takes it to the end with my brothers and adds certain sparkles to it. But this was a song that I came up with the first couple chords to it and everything, and then presented it to my brother. And so it was symbolic in that way. And then then we worked on it in Vegas, and I kind of forced my brothers to finish it for my wedding as a trick. I basically said, I want this to be my, the wedding dance song, And I said, I don't care. You don't have to do a best man speech, because they were both my best men. I said, but you have to finish the song. And so they were true to their word. We finished the song, but that's how we got the song. The song probably would have never, to this day, been finished, because it's an old song.
A year later, so Chapter 3 came out. A year later, you released Power of Love. Now, am I right in understanding that money from that song go to the Dee Dee Jackson Foundation?
Yes, yeah, and for the loss and grief, which is what Dee Dee Jackson Foundation specializes in, is loss and grief. But then, yeah, music therapy classes and stuff like that. Yeah, money from Power of Love definitely goes towards that. And Power of Love is an interesting one, because Power of Love was started on the reality show. We needed an anthem, like Michael has Heal the World. He has, We Are the World, I'm going to include that in it. Like, they have anthems in terms of ones that you're like, okay, this is what this charity is about. And we wanted that. And me and my brother Taryll had a kind of a disagreement, because he wanted a dance song, you know. He's like, Mom, like the dance, you know, I want to do a dance anthem. I'm like, I was so frustrating because I'm like, you know, We Are the World and Heal the World are not dance songs. They're anthems. They're power ballads, you know. But and so once he decided to kind of ditch the dance thing, he came up with the first chords, and it was magic from then on. Once he came on board, it's like my mom's spirit just helped us write that song, and we wrote that song with my dad and TJ's son Royal as well. So it was all of us, but it just was that energy behind it, because the song literally, once that tension was gone, it became what we wanted it to be. And we were working with the Boys and Girls Club at the time, and we still are, but we work with others too, which is kind of a community of, I don't want to say inner city kids at the time, because it was in Watts, and they sing on the song as well at the end. They're the kids that sing on the song, and then we got some of our cousins and kids to sing on it too. So it's a very important song for us.
And you mentioned We Are the World. There was a re-release of that, a remake of that a few years ago. Am I right in understanding 3T did some backing vocals on that track?
The one for
with Wyclef, I think, was in it.
Yeah, the 25th anniversary, I think, for Hey Show,
Mm.
right? Yeah, we were part of the chorus, which is what my dad was for We Are the World. He's part of the chorus, so he sung the chorus, you know, the whole We Are the World. So it was kind of really symbolic for us to do that 25 years later, that my dad had done it for We Are the World, and now we're doing it for the remake. And it was really surreal for us, because you know, right beside me is LL Cool J and Jeff Bridges, you know, singing, and Vince Vaughn's a couple, you know, rows up, and you know, Glass Knight's there and everything. It was a great, everyone was happy to be there. It was a great cause. And I was just like, wow, this is just, it's exciting, you know, in a way. Didn't do very well. I mean, it did well, but it wasn't, you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice, I don't think. And there's something so unique about We Are the World. And, you know, just in general, it's magic. But I'm appreciative of what they tried to do and for the cause that they did it for.
I think it came together very quickly because of what's happened over there too.
Yeah. Was it a tsunami or?
Yeah, it was completely destroyed everywhere.
Yeah, so I'm all for, I think that's what artists need to do, is come together to help other people, use their artistry in that way. That's what we were designed to do, use that platform. So that's one of the things that I am always appreciative, is when I see that happen.
Yeah, it's great when people can just, you know, drop what they're doing and, you know, come together to try and help other people, sometimes on the other side of the world to them.
Yeah, that's what we should be doing. You know, that's the thing I don't understand, you know, but I guess people are wired differently, but that's what we should always be doing.
Absolutely. I find it weird because obviously I'm English, well, my dad's Irish, so I'm half Irish, and then I'm in Europe, so I'm European. I've lived in America for a while, but we're all on this one planet. And when we work together, everything can be great, and we can go to the moon and we can invent stuff and all that good stuff. But everyone is so territorial and just wants to beat everyone else and not work together and help, you know, lift people up rather than pushing them down to benefit yourself.
You know, the thing that's the society that we live in a way, because we, you know, I know the US is very capitalistic, and I know that, you know, that the UK is just the same in that way, in terms of where we honor money more than we honor values and people. And that is unfortunate, because instead of lifting up the right people, like teachers and doctors and people that are helping and saving people, we're talking about people that are making the most money. And I never understood that. I still to this day don't understand that, in terms of that's who we value. We value the billionaires as opposed to the people that are really changing people's lives for the better in that way. And so that's just what we're born into in a way, but I don't think that's the way that it has to be. And that's the way that we don't have to be. But that's the way that we're taught to aspire to be. It's like you're taught to, the more money you have, the happier you'll be, and that's not the case at all. I can tell you that as someone that's had both in a way. You know, I've been happy pretty consistently, in terms of my life. Yes, money helps. It definitely does help, because you can open up your, you can have certain things, and have certain help and this and that. But if you don't have that foundation of happiness already, it's not gonna fill in that gap.
I think people don't necessarily appreciate where they are, and they're always like, I must get to this next place. And then because they're always chasing something, they never appreciate today and where they are.
That's how I used to be with my career. And so, and I always, I always looked at families that just were happy, didn't matter what setting it was or how much money they had. If they were happy, that was like what I wanted to aspire to be, was a happy unit. And they can go anywhere. You can put them anywhere. And that's the key of it. Well, if you take, I've seen so many, I don't want to say celebrity, but just so many famous couples that aren't happy. The world thinks they're happy, but they're not happy. Behind the scenes, they're not happy because they didn't have the foundation to be happy. In general, it was built on status as opposed to built on connection.
Just before the 10th anniversary of your uncle passing away, you launched a GoFundMe. Can you tell me about that and what you're raising money for at the moment?
Yeah, I'm doing I don't even call it a documentary, because it's more of a series. I'm doing a series about my uncle, because there's been so many lies that have been told probably for the last 30 years in terms of just things that have been planted through the media and through, I used to subscribe to there's no such thing as bad press, but somehow with my family there is, they're all, because people start believing it. And that's the thing. If you say it enough times, people will believe it. And that's the thing that happened with my uncle. It just was repeated, and it wasn't corrected because our family never spoke out. So it never was corrected. So it became folklore, and then it became truth. And it's like, that bothers me more than anything. So this is kind of righting the wrongs of a lot of, lies that have been told about my uncle, and a lot of misconceptions, and a lot of media spinning in a way as well. But it's really getting into the mindset of who Michael Jackson was and why he did the things he did, and what things he was forced to do, what things he, chose to do in a way, and why he chose to do them, because I was there for a lot of it. So I know the kind of mindset and I don't want to say purposes of what he did and why he did it, while other people are just guessing at it. So it's kind of like, who is Michael Jackson, but in a way, a humanizing way, in that way, because I think sorry, my daughter. And if you hear something that sounds like a parrot, it's my daughter, like way down there. But she's got great vocals. She'll be a great singer. Yeah. I know.
It's great to have her on the Sarah O'Connell show as well.
Yes, she will be eventually.
Yeah, it's very welcome.
I think that's the thing, is that we dehumanized him, and maybe subconsciously, because he was larger than life to a lot of people. But the media and, fans, in a way, we dehumanized. He became Mickey Mouse, or became someone larger than life that wasn't really real. And I think we have to get back to the basics of, no, this was a human being. This is someone that hurt, that bled, that there was a lot of things that he pretended to be that didn't hurt him, that did hurt him, and vice versa. And so it's getting into that mindset and really making people understand who Michael Jackson was, besides the superstar and everything else, the genius and all that stuff, but just who he was. And I think once people realize who he was, they will realize that what the media and, Wade and James and all those people are trying to pretend he was, they'll see, no, he wasn't like that at all. He wasn't capable of being that.
What kind of series will it be? Will it be archival footage? Will it be interviews?
It's mainly going to be interviews with the people that knew him best. When I say people that knew him best, I'm not very excited about let's get the biggest celebrity, because if that celebrity didn't know my uncle, I don't really want them on that. That they're just guessing. I want people that worked with him for 20 years. I want, the people that were at Neverland that worked with him every day or saw him every day. Those are the people that I think people get to know and get to see, and they'll be better judges than random strangers or people that are like, oh, I studied a book on Michael Jackson. I know what he liked and all that stuff. No, his friends and family and his co-workers and people that worked for him know what he was like because they saw that. And so it's testimonial in that way. The same way if you go to someone's memorial or whatever that has passed and people speak on their behalf, you get to kind of know the person through their memorial in that way. It's the same thing in that way because he's no longer here, so I can't interview him anymore. Right. But there will be some archival footage. I'm working on getting more, obviously. A lot of ours got stolen, which really stinks. We lost a lot of our footage in an auction, a storage scenario, and then an auction in Vegas. Some of it has popped up online. There's our Singapore trip that's online right now that you could probably find. That was something that was shot with our cameras. So I'm trying to see if we have other stuff that we've shot and whatever, because we shot with our uncle to capture memories, but we never wanted to intrude on him. So I kind of we don't have many pictures with him because I was never like, hey, pose and all. He had that all the time. So for us, we just chilled and we just, had fun and stuff like that. But I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that people would be dying to see.
And will you also be, obviously there's that documentary, will you be debunking some of the stuff in that as well?
I will. It's hard because it's like a lot of it's been online that's been debunked, but I know some people don't go online. They, they liked it kind of in the program that they're watching, and but I think what I want to do first is I want to set up the narrative of who Michael was and then why he wasn't capable of doing that. And then this is what they're saying, and this is where they're lying. But I think if it just becomes he said it and they said it, it's kind of like, it's a toss up in that way. But I think, also the hardest thing for me is I don't want to give them more. Wade's whole thing is he wants to be famous. It's like almost giving him that fame, and he wants to be connected to Michael Jackson. His whole life he's been connected to Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
In terms of every choreographed thing he's done, in terms of whether it's a dance studio, it's always he's doing choreograph. It's like, the protege of Michael Jackson or choreographed by, so he's always used that Michael Jackson name. And it's like, this is something that I want to last for 50, 100 years from now. And it's like, I'm having that hard debate of, do I want him even in it? Like, do I, and I'm hoping that another bombshell hits where it gets debunked even more, just like the train station where I don't even have to address it. It's like, but it's like, it's like they win at that point. And that's what I'm worried about. I know I have to debunk it as well, or at least put all those pieces together, like the train station or Grand Canyon, or, I think
the train station didn't even exist.
It didn't exist. It's not even that it didn't exist. It's like a lot of the places that James rattled, he rattled the, I think the pool or the spa, he said it's like if you actually went to Neverland and you saw the pool and the spa, you would know that's the most ridiculous place, and that's like wide open. You might as well be on the street doing it because people can see you easily from any direction in Neverland, and security was walking around all the time. So it's like, but he knows that people don't know Neverland, so he's just rattling places, and he got caught with the train station. He was just, he got cocky. He basically was saying a bunch of places like, oh, and here and here and here, and then one of them caught up to him where it's like, oh, that place didn't exist. Oh, my bad. Then he was the one that everyone thought was the most credible, which is the funniest thing about all that. Originally everyone's like, oh, Wade, I don't know, but James, I think he's telling the truth. And then it's like you find out that he had the biggest lie out of all of them that got caught so far.
Yeah, because obviously there was tons of coverage when that first came out, but then when stuff started getting debunked, journalists had moved on.
It's like using someone. It's like we used you up to the point where we don't need you anymore, and we're on to the next thing. And that's always been the case with our family and with the stories in that way. When, when Michael Jackson was innocent, in trial, it became not a story anymore. It wasn't like, oh, well, let's see how he was innocent. Let's go back to the court case and see all the points that they didn't care anymore. It's like, oh, he's innocent. Bye. We wanted him guilty, where we could have done another year of, media coverage. And so they're always rooting for the negative in that way. And so they don't really, I can't tell you how many media outlets didn't want to hear anything positive about Michael or my side of the story of leaving Neverland. Major papers didn't want to hear about what I had to say, which was, so I took whatever I could take.
How far along is the documentary series you're working on at the moment? When do you think we might see it?
Well, before all this happened, because I don't want to do Skype interviews or, or Zoom interviews, because I want it to be personal in terms of like where I'm actually there physically interviewing the person or persons or whatever. Because I want to see them in their own natural habitat, but at the same time, I want it to be that one-on-one scenario, more comforting than sitting and like being a journalist, because I'm not that person, being more conversational.
Yeah.
But this put a wrench into that. So I'm trying to do everything behind the scenes that I can do in terms of, studying. We've already started writing everything, all the episodes and stuff like that, but keep that going, because there are certain things that, when I say writing, there's certain outlines that we want to hit in terms of that. We want to talk about, the 93 extortion / allegations. We want to talk about, the 2005 trial. We want to talk about those things. So those are like points, but then what, out of there do people even know? Like, a lot of people don't even know about 2005 trial. They just know Michael was acquitted, and, whether, depending on which country you're in, if you're in America, oh, he got away with it, because the media spun it that way. And if you're in a more fair country, you saw both sides and you're like, oh no, he deserved to be acquitted. So it's just a matter of that. But I think you have to kind of revisit it, because a lot of people don't even remember. I mean, heck, I don't even remember part of it. And I was there. I was living at Neverland at the point, so I don't even remember part of it. You have to kind of remind people, but at the same time, there's that documentary, The Last, just came out, called Jordan. And it's a 10-part series, and it's done extremely well. But that's something kind of as a guideline that I want to do. But they interviewed, I think, 90-something people. I was planning on interviewing like 40 people, and they interviewed like 90 people. But there's a 10-part. I'm hoping mine's like 4 to 5 parts. So I'm still in that ballpark. Yeah, I don't think it can be told in a 2-hour thing at all. There's no way. There's too much information. I don't want to skip over anything. There's the Pepsi commercial, incident that changed his life in terms of, it burnt his scalp, third degree burns on his scalp, that he lived with pain for the rest of his life. A lot of people don't even know that. So when you start talking about pain medicine, if someone had a serious injury and they had to be on pain medicine, you'd be like, oh, okay, well, I understand it. But when it comes to Michael Jackson, it's like, oh no, he's a druggie because he was on pain, because now saying that, it's just, you have to explain certain things in certain ways.
Right.
Because the way that it was portrayed, was that he overdosed on, on drugs or whatever. But the fact is that he was administered something that from a doctor, and they didn't find any of the other prescription drugs. But they don't say that. Like they don't report, because it's easier to say, oh, he was a druggie and he overdosed, which is farthest from the truth.
So next month, June, is Pride Month, and the LGBT community around the world are having kind of a tough time at the moment. Have you got any messages for the community?
It's hard, because I have a lot of friends in that community, and so I'm quick not to say that I understand, because unless you are that person, or that you are existing in that space, you truly don't understand everything. But I sympathize and I empathize, and I'm there for you in that way. But I would just say in general, keep, how would I say that in a way? Because I would say don't ever get discouraged, of who you are in that way, and no one can take power away from you, or unless you give them that permission. And there are plenty of role models to look up to, in your community, that are strong and fighting the fight, and just lean on them in that way when you're feeling sad or whatever. Because society can be very harsh and judgmental in a way. So just, it's hard. I've had to develop such strong skin that I have to start thinking in terms of like what it would be not to have that, like those layers of, because a lot of people don't have those layers. They're human like me, but at the same time, they haven't had 30 years of becoming tough in that way. I admire them. I admire their strength, because the journey that they've had to take, some of them alone, you know. So I admire their strength, and I know from the friends that I have that it's been a tough journey. The friends that I have, you know, it's been hard, and I've seen them suffer, and I've seen them, you know, you always think things are getting better, then something happens and you that, you know, we have a long way to go.
So from what I can tell, you're also a big movie fan. What are your favorite films?
I'm a movie geek. My favorite films. Well, I love Shawshank Redemption. That's been my go-to answer because
Yeah.
that's actually BG's favorite film too. That's why we bond. So we've come in agreement of that. I think it's what it is that movie just in general encompasses everything, you know, hope, faith, and, you know, and a bond. And I don't know, there's something about that movie just magical to me. So that's always been my favorite film. But then I are like kind of that film that I want to be a director, you know. It just made me love the story and the acting and all that stuff. What made me want to be a director was probably Star Wars, or, you know, like I'm more sci-fi in terms of like fantasy kind of thing. So Star Wars, Jurassic Park was something that Spielberg was a big part of my life in terms of that formula, just big kid kind of thing. Yeah, but I'm also like, it's weird. I'm all over the place. Like Gone with the Wind is one of my favorite movies, you know, which I have no reason. I don't know why it would be. I just like, it's like a big soap opera, you know, 3-hour soap opera that, I don't know, I got caught with the characters, and, you know, and, you know, there's so many great movies. Recently, I loved the superhero movies like Avengers, Endgame, and Infinity War. I never felt like a kid again watching until I was watching those movies. And the fan service, I always believe in fan service. I know that sounds, you know, you listen to the fans. 3T listens to the fans. You have to listen to, they're your market, but they also are your biggest supporters, and they're your, if you think you know better than them, then, you know, you're not listening. And so I would say definitely with Infinity War was the one that started it in terms of that. Gosh, that movie made me like, oh wow, this hit every landing that I wanted it to hit. And it was a reward for people that have watched all those movies. It's like an intricate web. There's callbacks, there's, you know, homages to earlier ones, there's things that paid off, like, you know, 15 movies later. You know, it's amazing. It really is. And I can't imagine. My biggest pet peeve, and I don't want to go on a soapbox, but biggest pet peeve with movies is when they have this huge budget and the movie and the script is horrible. I'm like, that's the first thing you're supposed to work on is the script, you know. And it's like they have these $200 million movies and the story's bad. It's like, that's where you're supposed to start. You're supposed to get the story right, and then everything on top of that can, you know, then if like something happens and it's unforeseeable, like an actor dies or whatever, I understand that because you're dealt with the blow that you're dealt with, like Carrie Fisher in Star Wars. But if you don't have a good script in the beginning of that, you know, which is more the case, and a trajectory of where you go, that was what happened with Star Wars. They didn't even have the trilogy mapped out.
Can you tell me what else you're working on next? Obviously, there's the documentary series. We're hoping the second album will come out at some point. Is there anything else you've got in the pipeline?
I have a lot on the pipeline. You know, I'm working with my wife and sister-in-laws. We have a couple of TV projects that we're hoping to get off the ground. Very proud of them, and so you might be hearing about that soon. And I'm always doing something. You know, that's the thing. But at the same time, I'm trying to put things in priority. You know, the documentary or the series that I'm working on, that's kind of priority number one, just because of the energy and the time I want to put into this, and because of who it's about, you know, because it's my uncle, it's super important to me. And having a daughter just now, you know, she just turned 18 months. It's like, I don't want her to grow up in an environment that, you know, is toxic about Michael Jackson. She deserves better than that. And I think she deserves, you know, to celebrate him like everyone else should have done in that way. And so demystifying and dispelling and debunking all those lies is important to me.
Can you tell me a fun fact about you? Something people may not know. It can be a party trick or a piece of trivia or anything like that.
That people don't know about me. I can, but I'm not doing the voice. Like I can do voices, and I know that's why I was hesitant. I can disguise my voice in many different ways. Like I'm someone that probably could go into like voice acting or voice, like the character, because I've done so many different voices. I can do a British girl's voice very well, which we have footage of that on tour. Actually, that might be something that one day gets released, where I tricked one of our band members, our guitarist from 3T. This is on the Brotherhood tour, and I pretend that there's a British fan locked in the bathroom. Basically, Taryll and TJ calm down, say there's this fan that won't leave the bathroom. She refuses to leave, and it's locked. And so we have our guitarist that's basically trying to negotiate with her, and that's me and locked in the bathroom pretending to be. And it's hilarious, But it was those times were always fun. But I don't know. I try and remain a big kid. That's one of the first things for me. I learned that through my uncle, and I really admire that. I think we try and grow up. Growing up to me is it's not a dirty word, it's not a negative word, but it is in a way, because it means all of a sudden it's like you care about finances. You start looking at the world differently. You have to get a job, you have to do this. It's like you become so self-centered in a way that it's like it becomes you versus something now, as opposed to as a kid it's about wanting to bring people in and connecting with people and being like a community and joining. That's how I grew up with sports and all that stuff. And now it's about individualism and like, can you get ahead and whatever. And so I just don't like that. And so I've always been a big kid and remained a big kid. And so I love anime, like Japanese anime. I love cartoons still. I've always loved cartoons. I love chick flicks. I hate to use the word chick flicks, but I honestly love them. I grew up on them, but I'm a romantic nerd by heart.
Do you have any favorites? What are your favorites?
Some Kind of Wonderful. Can't Buy Me Love I like, but it's more of a classic. A Sure Thing, which is something that Rob Reiner directed, which has John Cusack and Daphne Sanuga. That one is amazing to me. That one is something that was kind of like his precursor to When Harry Met Sally, before When Harry Met Sally. But it's because it has a road trip element to it too, and it's about two people that start off hating each other, and then by the sucker for those, when it's like they meet and they kind of dislike each other, like and you're like, there's no way they're getting together, and then something happens and you start seeing kind of little inching together. Beauty and the Beast does that too, It's that kind of thing. But that formula works for me. So. And which Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite Disney movies.
I interviewed Don Hahn, who was the producer of Beauty and the Beast and the Lion King.
Oh, wow, yes.
So that was amazing.
Wow.
Yes, I went through the entire production of, even when they animated it, and an earthquake that affected the Lion King when it was just almost ready for release, and people were animating at home to try and get it done in time. And
wow,
Who Framed Roger Rabbit and all these amazing films that followed it.
I loved Who Framed Roger Rabbit just because it brought all these legendary characters together, like seeing Daffy and Donald on the same screen, doing their piano duel and all that stuff. It was very magical to me in that way. And so wow, what a special interview.
Growing up, I wanted to be a traditional animator, 2D drawn animation, so I have a degree in animation. So
I'm jealous. I always wanted to animate too, so you took it a step further.
But we have a lot in common, it seems.
We have a little too much in common.
Right.
Because that's exactly, I studied animation as well. I actually took a UCLA class in animation, but I don't have a degree. Yeah, and I'm such a slow drawer that I knew I couldn't be an artist because I'm a meticulous drawer. Like I'm not someone that can sketch really fast or draw. Like I'm someone that because I overanalyze, but I always appreciated that technique and that was like amazing to me.
Because animation, if I wanted to do something by myself, it's literally thousands of drawings, which is great, and I would love to. But then it's like, where do I get money that entire time and stuff? So now I do like caricature. So I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, wow. Yes.
So I do like the background as well.
Yes. Do you use Photoshop or do you use
Yeah,
Painter?
so I have it here actually. So I've got a graphics tablet right next to me, and then I draw it. Yeah, one of them.
It's I don't know. Yeah.
It's never told me. It's just there. It's never read its own name to me, so I don't know how it pronounces.
I've heard it both ways for
Right.
fashion. So that's amazing though. I used to when I was a kid, I would freeze frame, off the VHS, because I would record off the TV, the Transformers, and then I would take a big piece of paper and trace, that's how I started learning. Like, so I was like a tracer, like trace the outline of Optimus Prime and then all that stuff. And I loved that.
Well, that's how they do it. So, not now, but in the olden days, they'd have paper and they'd do one frame and they'd do the next one, and
the onion skinning, yeah. Computers are great in that way because now they can kind of help assist, in terms of, especially in terms of coloring and all that.
Yeah, so much time. Finally, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show and your fans around the world?
No, just thank you. I've always said thank you to the fans in general, not only for 3T fans, but Jackson family fans in general, because their support has meant so much to us. And it's I know people always say that, but for us, we feel that love and support, and we appreciate that love and support because it's kind of reciprocated. What we do, we're trying to do for you guys, and then when we see that you guys like it or that you appreciate it, makes us want to do it more in that way. And so I'm just super appreciative of the fans, and just for people to listen and understand and kind of get to know our family, because we've been such a how do I say the word, just not many people know about us in that way. They know our music, but they don't know the personality, only from what they've heard from the media and whatever. So I would say really, every family has their problems, as we all know. Every family has their dynamics. We're no different in that way. We're just a family, and we're human, and that's all I would say. And
well, Taj Jackson, it's been an honor speaking to you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. No, this was a fun interview. Sorry if I yabbed around too much, but
no, at all. I could talk to you for days about movies and animation and music and all this good stuff.
I know, so much in common, yeah.
Right. And thank you to everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, and leave lots of lovely comments. I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.